Hey guys, NJ here. So today we're doing a little follow-up video on my video about the JSAUX case. If you haven't seen that, it's worth a look. I point out some kind of finer details on this that I think others may have missed. I think it's worth your time if you're considering this case. But overall, it's a very positive review. I also go over how to modify the stock height buttons if you're like me and you want to mix and match. You can see here I've got the slightly raised or the middle profile on the lower and then the standard profile on the upper. Now if you do want to mix and match, you wouldn't be able to do this because for some reason the standard profile, these yellow ones here, come as a fixed pair. So I go over how to separate those out so that you can run mixed if you want to. But today this is really about case options because I'm someone who does like to run protective cases, and I know that immediately kind of limits things, especially if you're someone who enjoys the look, the aesthetics of this new JSAUX case. So I mean, one subject is the fact that, you know, most cases will cover and block that lovely clear or smoked aesthetic, and JSAUX are releasing some more colours. I think they're doing a green and a purple, which look really cool. But yeah, obviously, you know, unless there are some cases with you know, clear sections on the back, but again, your case options go down and down. The bigger kind of elephant in the room there is the fact that you've now got this aluminium plate here, which does, as my previous video shows, offer some thermal improvement. If you're going to put a case on that covers it up, you're obviously going to be mitigating that, and then you're back to not only losing most of the thermal performance that you'll gain from this aluminium plate, you lose the aesthetics with it as well, which is obviously quite frustrating, and then just tempts you more to run without it, without a case, that is, which I think's a bit of a terrible shame. So I've kind of got a solution here for some of you that might be interested. I've got a second, I've actually got two decks. That's a long story, but one of these should have been sold by now, but I just haven't. It's been useful to the channel to have two. This is a fairly common case. This was one that I found on Amazon. I'll put links in the description to this. Now, it's a cheap case. I can't remember the name of the brand, but it's, you know, a fairly typical design. There's something about the extra bulk that some of these cases add that just makes the feel of the deck even nicer. I'm kind of a fan of how the deck feels with a case, and there's just the extra security with the extra protection. Now, let's just quickly talk about my bugbear when it comes to kickstands. The kickstand is an absolute must for me on a case. And one thing I must say that a lot of cases use that I don't particularly like, or which I find misleading when it comes to how the kickstands operate, is the ones that are top hinged. So like this, the hinge is at the top, you pull the stand out, they often, something like this, they have a little support. Now, the problem that I have with this particular type of design is that they often boast, look at all of these levels of adjustability you have. Now, that in reality, if you're hinging from the top, equates to, and I'll show you here, that's it fully extended. This will equate to almost zero adjustability. And this will go for pretty much any top hinged kickstand, unless they have a massive amount of adjustability, which most of them don't. You'll see here, as I move the kickstand in, so we're at its max, so I can't pull this back any further. As I move this in, you'll see the deck actually goes up fractionally. And then if I wanted it to have more of a back angle, you're then getting to the point where eventually it's just going to collapse. So you actually have almost no adjustability here if this is top hinged. This is just an inherent problem with, you know, wanting, you know, this is essentially your fulcrum. This is your hinge point, engineer speak there. If you adjust from all the way up here, you're just not going to get the amount of adjustability you need until this ends up moving quite like back here. We need to go all the way back here for this to actually be able to tilt back to, you know, give it any kind of range. They all do this, including JSAUX own case, the kill switch stand. There's you know, they've all kind of got that. So if you have one, I mean, I don't have the kill switch, and I know that's a very, you know, well-respected case now it's been fixed. So I don't know how far some of those go back, but they would need to go a long way back to get any useful adjustability in back angle. Okay, so there is that. The other thing I hate with this particular case, and I don't know, you know, again with the other ones, is the fact that this can just flop. So if I'm gaming and I've got it hinged, so let me hinge it here. Sorry about the reflective screen, means you've got to stare at my ugly mug for a moment. If you have it hinged like so, if you lift it up, it often just collapses behind it, which I find really frustrating. So yeah, there's that too, because often I'm gaming and I just want to put the thing down and this is already folded back and it just falls. So, you know, these have a limited use. I mean, there is a way I could stiffen up that hinge, but maybe I'll look into that, because otherwise I quite like this case. The other reason I think this particular case is quite good, I don't know if you can see here, you can see the back of the deck. This is actually raised, the back plate itself is raised above the deck. So there's an air gap under here, which I think is a really smart move. There's also venting. Now, if you're using the deck that's been modified as we spoke of with the cooling back plate, that's really useful. Because there's an air gap there. There's no kind of contact from the plastic insulating it. Air can move around underneath here. So this is a much better idea. But sadly, you know, this thing's covered, so you lose the transparency effect. However, I would still take this case over most of the other ones that just sit flush on the back. Because if they're sitting flush on the back, you're insulating it, you're completely mitigating the point of, you know, having that aluminium plate on the back dissipating some heat. So they're all things to think about. Sorry if I've told you those things and now you were otherwise happy with what you were going to order and then you've just realised it's maybe not the most ideal solution. However, bring me solutions, not problems, NJ. I have got a kind of halfway house solution here. So let me put that deck back and then let's bring this case into the view. Now, don't get too excited. This is not an off-the-shelf perfect solution for the deck. This has been modified by me. That modification being that I have taken a Dremel and done a little bit of file work and actually cut a shape out here to allow the back plate to cool and to be just exposed to the air, not to have anything on it insulating it. Okay, so I've made this modification. If you're not a tinkerer, if you're not someone who's happy using a Dremel, and for those of you that don't know what a Dremel is, even something like this, or a rotary tool, I guess, if you're not happy modding using that, using a set of needle files like this to get it, you know, at least to look half neat, like a neatly cut out section, or, you know, then this is not an ideal solution for you at all. But it is, you know, we've got to a solution. The other reason I like this case in particular, and again I'll link it, it's very cheap, good quality case. It does have a kickstand, but this one is hinged from the lower portion. Now what I like about this is that you can, and you'll see again straight away, if we go all the way to the back position, we've got a considerably better, quite a long way, leaning back quite a long way there. And then as we move up through these positions, there's the next one, there's the next one, let's keep going, there's the next one, and then I think there's one more still. Yeah, at that point, the, you know, deck's almost standing upright. The other thing I love about this particular hinge is the hinge itself is quite stiff, so that when I lift it up to play, if I shake it around, this doesn't go anywhere. I place it down, it's back where it is. I really like that. And then the whole thing, it's got two little magnets here, just magnetically sits there. It's pretty damn flush too. I don't see that having a problem going back in a case. So if you do this modification, again, not ideal. It's not an off the shelf product. You then have a solution for our JSAUX backplate, because this will go on like so. I'll install this in a minute. It's a bit of a, it can be a little bit of a pig to get in, but let me just get it roughly in place. You can see now when this is on, I'll put this on and show you in a second, we now have an ideal solution. And this particular case has got this kind of, well, it's not transparent, sort of opaque section, which means you can at least benefit from some of that clear case aesthetic. So for me at the minute, this is a kind of a best of solution. There's not going to be a third, I mean, I can't see an ideal solution. There's not going to be a third party that are going to put out a case for this that is going to have a cutout for that. The only people that are going to do it are JSAUX. But will they? Because their standard, their cases that they have released don't help with that. So they're going to need to release a case specifically for this, which lets you take advantage of the aesthetic and also lets you take advantage of that aluminium plate. They may very well do that. You know, bear in mind when you watch this, the time of release, there's nothing yet. I know they are supposed to be releasing some kind of pellicooler for this as well. I personally think, and again, watch my old videos, that the application of Thermalright TFX, which gave us, you know, and still does, still using it, I'm still getting between 7 and 8 degrees of improvement on thermals before this case, and then 3, perhaps 4 degrees at max extra with this plate. When you're talking, you know, 10, 12 degrees of improvement on thermals, that's a real win. I don't really want to go backwards from here. Because if JSAUX release something and it's got that top hinge mount kickstand, if at all a kickstand, I'm not sure that's going to be very compelling for me. So I may do a little guide on how I did this. It's not any real science to it. I scored the lines out with a knife. I use a sharp hobby knife, scalpel, and I scored those lines out. And using a steel rule just to make sure I had nice and neat cutting lines, and then went in with the Dremel. Once it was done, I then cleaned it up with the blade edge, and then finally some microfiling to get it to look pretty neat. You know, it's decent enough to where it doesn't affect my OCD. So that's how I'll be moving forward, but it's something else to consider when you are buying this backplate case. If you're like me and you have to run a case on top of it, on top of your Steam Deck, think about what that means before you order the JSAUX clear case, because most of you will probably already have a case, and if you've gone and bought one of these, you're now thinking, that's a bit of a shame for one reason or another. And there it is. So you can see now we have what we needed, which was this nice exposed section for the aluminium plate. If you wanted to then fit a pellicooler, I've kind of I think the pellicooler was kind of a waste of time, really. But if if you're someone who's really into the, trying to get this thing as cold as possible, maybe for overclocking or whatever, or you want to leave it docked running a very heavy game and you want to use a pellicooler, you'll have to cut out a larger section, because most of these coolers are wider than this actual plate. Again, we'll see what JSAUX bring out and go from there, really. But this does give me what I'm after now. This allows me to run with the JSAUX case. You can see some of the transparency, which is nice. We can now see the internals of the deck. So that's cool. We haven't totally lost the aesthetic. And then we've got the plate, and of course the bit that matters to me is the kickstand, and one that is actually angle adjustable. And when I pick it up, shake it about, it doesn't move. So when I place it down, it's good again. So yeah, I'll link this in the description. Good luck to you if you want to take a knife and a Dremel to the case and modify it. It's cheap enough to where you know, you haven't got that much to lose if you mess it up. Maybe that will be a learning experience, and then you just buy another one and you'll get it right on the next one. But it's not that tough to cut that out. And then yeah, we've got the solution that we wanted. Hope that was helpful or interesting at the very least, and I'll see you guys in the next one.